Hi, I'm Jennifer Branch. Today I wanted to show you something a little bit different, behind the scenes of a portrait I did of my oldest son. It's from an old photo. He was about 4 years old at the time, and I've been meaning to paint it and just hadn't gotten around to it yet. So this is going to be a little bit different. I wanted to show you what goes into painting a portrait, all the different layers and the very careful drawing, completely unlike my normal sloppy drawing, and many layers, and the pigments are mixed. It's a big mess and it's all muddy on my palette, so I'm not going to list the paint names. I'm just going to tell you about the different mixes you might use for a portrait of your own. This is a quite a difficult portrait. Mouth being open, and a child's portrait means there's no wrinkles for, you know, little flaws in your brushwork to show up. But I thought you'd be interested, and it might give you some ideas for painting some portraits of your loved ones. So let's paint some portraits. Careful drawing is the first step in doing a great portrait. You want the features where they're supposed to be. In a tree, it doesn't matter. In a human face, it matters. So what I start out with is a warm wash that's a slightly cool color, so in this case a light green, and I paint this over all the shadow areas, and that color is going to make the shadow areas glow. It depends on what color you use, what the portrait you're doing. Sometimes you'll want to do like a cadmium or any color. Now I'm doing a background. This is going to be a cobalt blue and quinacridone rust. I'm using a very limited palette. Like I said, even the dark is the quinacridone rust and the cobalt blue, so it's a very dark, chalky color. It's not maybe as vibrant as one with phthalo blue or ultramarine blue, but I want the slight chalkiness as a foil for the face. I want it a little bit dull. I'm using some cobalt violet in here, especially right there. You can see that being thrown into the mix. And the cobalt violet is going to give me a warm, dull color, which is perfect for shadows. That's what I want. You notice that I floated in some of the nickel azo yellow and some cadmium red, and there I think you have about all the colors I'm using on this portrait, except for just a touch of white gouache at the very end. So I'm wearing warm shadows, and I'm wearing a little bit of the cool tones from the background in some of the shadows on the face. So you see some of the cobalt blue toned down with a little bit of nickel azo yellow and a little bit of the cobalt violet. The cobalt violet also helps that from becoming green, because while I want the green in the shadows on the face, I don't want the whole face to be green. Then, it looks a little odd, like an alien. So here I get to start the shadows around the face, and I'm really, the eyeballs are just there. That kind of gives me a gauge of how dark I'm going to want to get. I'm much more interested in the eye sockets at this age, and really almost the end before I really care about the iris color. It's nice to put a couple medium darks in here. Normally when you're painting an oil portrait, you would start with medium value range, and then you go up higher highlights and you go down for shadows. And in watercolor portraits, you don't have that option because you want to use the white of the paper as much as you possibly can. It's not that you can't use gouache, but you're going to lose that transparency, which makes it so wonderful. So you need to use it where it needs it, not where you messed up. So don't go too dark, don't go too light. You want a couple of the dark irises and things like that. But what you're really interested in a watercolor portrait, just like you would be in an oil portrait, is you're interested in modeling the structure of the face, the fleshy part of the face. The features, that's, the mouth is there as a placeholder. The irises are there as a placeholder. The ears, they're a little bit more interesting at this stage. You're wanting to shape those eye sockets and get the shadows in there and have the cheekbones in the right places. Now, the mouth is particularly tricky because a child generally has very bright, dark red lips, right? And then a beautiful open smile. It kind of looks like a black hole if you're not careful. So what you need to do, and what I did in here, is I painted it dark, and then I'm pulling the color and some shadows over it so it's flowing into the rest of the structure. So that jawline and the little area right around the teeth that's part of the mouth. So the lips shouldn't be completely painted on. The shadows around the lips should help encompass that. Now, he's got the nice dimples at this stage, and it's very cute, but big open smiles, they're a little tricky to do. So if you're starting out with this, try just a nice closed smile. I'm blurring the ears and other things like that. I want to blur a lot of areas into the shadows and adding a little bit of bright green, but not too bright to the hat because I'm using the same greens as I've used before. This one, actually, I mixed it with a nickel azo yellow and the Viridian as more of a duller green. And I want a pretty heavy shadow under the neck because that's going to bring that chin jawline out and make that nice and crisp right there because it gives it a sense of depth. I can go back and I can blur some areas, and I will. This is a case where, since you want the edges to blur into each other, what you want to do is you want to paint it too harsh. You want to paint things too harsh and use a good paper. You've got to use a good paper because without good sizing, you can't do this. Doesn't have to be super expensive, just the Arches. This is an Arches hot press. I would do cold press. I probably wouldn't do a rough press, especially for a child's portrait. It's too sparkly. Nice deep hat shadow, but remember it's a warm shadow because there's light being thrown up on the hat and down, and it's kind of a khaki green hat here. Then so that color is falling on there. So I'm gradually modeling those colors, a little bit of some bright cad red in there. You'll notice that most watercolor portraits don't go for skin color. Most watercolor portraits go for, let's put some greens on there or some bright reds on there. That's because it's easier and it looks really cool. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying for skin tones, then you're going to want lots and lots of dull, delicate layers building up. I really don't know of another way to achieve that. And here's the final portrait. Just a little bit of touch of gouache in the eyes, and that's it. For more information, please visit my website, paintingwatercolor.com, and I hope this inspired you to paint some portraits of your loved ones, because it's a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching. Happy painting!